Regan, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thanks so much for having me, Laurie.
I'm really thrilled because I did not get to talk to you as much as I wanted to talk to you when I first met you, because it's hard when we meet at events, right? It's like, hi, bye, okay, hopefully we'll connect again.
Right, exactly. It's when you're connecting with another speaker and then you're both doing 100 things with 1,000 people, and it's how it goes.
It always works out, because if you're meant to connect, you just have to trust and know that it will organically or somehow you'll create that space, or you'll find that time. So I would love for you to share with everyone what you're doing right now and kind of where that all got started.
Absolutely. I mean, if you go to any of my social media pages, for anyone who's listening, you'll probably see that I travel around the world and I have a multi-7-figure business, and I am blessed to help so many people each year. But it definitely didn't start that way, and it's been a really evolutionary journey. I mean, I grew up in Auckland, New Zealand, and I was brought up in a family that really believed in following the system and education and going to school and working really hard and getting good grades. And so, I went down that path, and I was studying actually to be an architect of all things at university, and I had
awesome.
and I had one university lecturer who actually came in and he got us to do a visualization exercise, and he got us to picture our lives as an architect like 25 years out from that day. And I did it, and I literally felt sick to my stomach, and I just had this moment where I just knew that, you know what, even though I can do this, even though I'm working hard at this, even though I'm good at this, this isn't my truth, and this isn't what I'm put here to do. And so I ran out of that room, and I boldly called my dad and told him that, you know what, I'm not going to be an architect, I'm not going to do that. And I had his support, but he turned around and he was like, well, that's great, what are you going to do? And I had absolutely no clue. And it was this moment where I guess I was so clear on what I didn't want and how I didn't want to live my life, but I had no idea what the other side of that looked like. And so, that's what threw me into personal development and really diving in at a really, really young age, and, just kind of going absolutely nuts on it. And there was a big journey through that, and working with many different coaches and mentors and studying a lot of different things, from the inner game to the external game around business. And, I remember this moment where after probably about 2 years, my life actually started shifting and I started getting results, and people just started coming to me really naturally and saying, hey, Regan, how did you do that? And I started sharing with them what I knew, and that was my first taste of coaching and my first taste of really impacting people in a way where they got to go out and change their lives. And so I built my first one-on-one practice around that, and then from there leveraged that into speaking and running live events, and then from there transitioned everything online, and that's the face and the brand that you see today.
Amazing. And I'm sure there are so many different struggles that came throughout all of those things with sharing and moving into your purpose, because there's a lot of fear, right? You go from thinking that you're going to be an architect and then having to first, one of the biggest blocks right there is, oh my God, I have to now tell my parents, or I have to go launch this other idea that may not have been super popular at the time. So I think that there's a lot of people listening who probably are in that beginning phase. What would you tell them who maybe it's that first idea of, oh my God, I am stuck in something, or they feel stuck in something that they don't want to be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just say listen to that feeling. Listen to that feeling, like trust your gut. Your gut always knows. And even if you're good at something, or even if you're making a lot of money from it, or you've built a life around it, if you're getting that feeling in the pit of your stomach that there's something more and it's not right, I promise you, if you ignore that, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And so I feel like people just have to trust that and listen to it and bite the bullet, and then really spend some time going within and asking themselves, what am I actually put here to do? And what does my ideal life look like? And what is my vision for what I'm creating in the world? And I know those are really big questions and people may not have the answers right away, but I promise you, if you spend time on it and if you breathe life into it and if you journal on it and just be still with it, then eventually you'll start getting pulls and pushes and nudges that will lead you in the right direction if you trust that.
I love that you just said that, because I feel like sometimes even maybe you go through this too right now, that you can even be in something that you love, but maybe it's starting to feel a bit stagnant, or maybe you're feeling, some nudges coming, but we're not giving it the space or time. Sometimes we can get so busy doing the things that we already know that it's like we fill it, right? We can fill it and not give us the space. So what is something you do right now, even though you're in something you love, to give yourself space and time? And is there anything coming through for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm constantly reassessing this because, you know, as humans, we evolve, right? And so even if we create a business that, you know, 2 years or 5 years ago was amazing for us, chances are we've kind of evolved through or past that. And I see a lot of people that they get stuck in something and they're so scared to shift it or to change it because they're worried that they'll lose it all. And yeah, it was really interesting actually. So when I said I built the kind of the offline speaking business and, you know, running live events and everything like that. And, you know, I was 23, 24 at the time, and I built that to be roughly $1 million business per year. And I knew at a point in that business that I had kind of outgrown it, and it wasn't serving the amount of people that I wanted to touch. It also wasn't serving how I wanted to live my life, because I wanted to travel around the world and work from my laptop and be anywhere. And I couldn't do that with how I'd structured this business. And so I ended up listening to that, and I ended up walking away from that business, literally shutting it down, not even, you know, phasing it out or doing anything logical. And everyone was telling me I was crazy. They're like, Regan, what are you doing? Like, you're going to lose everything. Like, you've worked so hard. You should be grateful for what you have. All of these conversations were coming in externally. And I just had to trust that, you know what, this has served me to this point, but now I need to adjust and I need to choose alignment. And I need to really make a decision that is aligned to me and where I'm going. And it doesn't mean that what I did in the past was wrong. It just means that I've kind of evolved into a different place, and that's okay.
I love that. And could you explain to people what it felt like for you? Because I think a lot of times what can happen for us is it's like we get these feelings and then our logical brain comes in and we're like, wait, what am I supposed, when you talk about trust, what is it that you just know that's what you should be trusting? What does it feel like? How do you identify it? When is it like your time to just leap?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for me, it comes down to this feeling of alignment or being aligned. And I feel like that's a little bit of a buzzword these days that's kind of thrown around a bit. Like, make sure you live in alignment, create your business in alignment, right? And it's like, what does that actually mean? And for me, it's the feeling of knowing that whatever I'm doing day to day, I'm aligning to my bigger purpose and I'm aligning to my greater vision. And so it's tuning in, and when you're clear on what that purpose is or what that vision is or what that goal is in the next 1, 2, or 5 years, when you're clear on that, it's actually kind of easy. You just tune in and you ask yourself, like, does this feel good? And is this getting me to the place that is going to accelerate me to the vision or to the goal? And if the answer is no, then it's like, okay, cool, well, I'm going to say no to that. I'm going to walk away from that. And you really choose it from that place. Or it might be yes, but oh, it feels scary and it's totally uncomfortable and it feels really big, and that's okay as well. But at least it's a grounded feeling in your stomach where it's like, you know what, like, I know this is my truth. And even though it's big and terrifying, I choose to commit to that.
Oh, yes. There's so many things that, you know, and especially as you start your business or start getting out there, or maybe you have a really, like, there are so many shiny things or distracting things that can truly even be exciting in the moment.
Right.
But sometimes you're like, wait, this is just not in alignment with this massive vision. Like, this is a totally different turn.
Right.
So, you know, it's just like really trying to figure that out. So I love how much you talk about financial and personal abundance. Can you explain what personal abundance is for you?
Absolutely. Well, personal abundance for me is truly living an abundant life across every area of your life. Because I've seen too many people say, you know what, I want to manifest the financial abundance, and they do that and they make the money, but at what expense? All of a sudden they notice that they're sabotaging their relationships, or they've put on a whole lot of weight, or all this other stuff starts to fall apart. And I just really believe it doesn't have to. I believe that people can have it all across the board in whatever way that looks like for them, and they can literally up-level every single area of their life and live in alignment across the board rather than just with the money, right?
Totally. I literally see that all the time. I've even seen it in my life. It's like sometimes for me, I've had to find balances by going to extremes. And it's like, oh, okay, I thought that if I had financial abundance because I came from a really poor background, that would just solve all problems. And I was like, wow, this really can create some other problems. So for you, I know that you've been able to create financial abundance for yourself. What were some things that you had to figure out as that started coming into your life in a big way?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, was that around personal abundance or financial abundance?
See, I jumped right into financial. Right into financial abundance.
Okay, perfect. Well, look, here's the thing. With creating financial abundance, I really believe that it's an inner game. It's an internal game. And, people ask me all the time, Regan, how is it that you've manifested millions of dollars? And the answer is never like some secret strategy which I've figured out, which the rest of the world doesn't know. Like, it's not something which happens on the outside. It's absolutely an internal game. And so if you want, I can break you down some of the internal things that I do to manifest financial abundance. Would that be good?
Yes, that's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So one of the first things, and we touched on this already in this awesome interview, is really tuning into like, what is the vision and what are you actually calling in? And when you do this, you need to be specific around the money that you're calling in. There's too many people saying, just financial abundance or freedom with money. And it's like, well, what is that? Like, how much is that? What does that really look like? And so you get totally clear on that. And I recommend that when people do this, you actually paint the picture around the money with every area of your life. Now, this is going to ensure that we don't have what we just talked about and sabotaging other areas just to go and create the income. And so I'd be looking at, I'm so happy and grateful that I've received this amount of money per month or per year. And look how this also flows into my relationships and my health. And I'm so energized, and just getting really clear on it. Because I really believe that if you don't define how every area of life is going to be, then you're leaving it up to chance. And, I don't know about you, but I don't want to gamble my dream and my vision, right? And so let's be clear and specific on it. And then from there, once we're clear on the vision, I always start to look at, okay, who do I need to become in order to embody this vision, in order to embody this financial goal? And I really believe that, especially with money, you don't get in life what you do, you get in life who you are and who you choose to be. Because if it was the doing, there's a lot of people working really hard right now, but they're not actually receiving the money they desire. And that's because there's some things internally which are not aligned to that. So I'm always looking at, okay, cool, how would that version of me walk? How would that version of me talk? What would I be focusing on? How would I show up? How would I dress? Like, what kind of people would I have around me? What kind of people would I no longer have around me, right? What do I need to eliminate from my life as I step into this new version of me? And so it's getting clear on that. And then thirdly, the last thing that I love doing is looking at the external piece and looking at what kind of action do I need to take, because we can't just sit there and pray and meditate and hope it's all going to show up. Like, of course we have to take some action. So in order to do that, what is the most aligned action that I can be taking right now in my life and my business? And from there, when I'm jotting down ideas around that, I look at, okay, great, what are 1, 2, or 3 daily non-negotiables which I can tune into, which I can commit to doing right now? And that means that if I go through this process, I'm doing the inner work, but then I'm showing up in an aligned way in my life and my business in order to propel it all forward.
So good. I love just immediate action steps that break down, because at the end of the day, it's what are you doing right now? What can you do tomorrow? How much is too much, right? And I think that's something that I've often done is, I'll do these 5 or 10 things tomorrow, right? I do this to-do list based on me not having to do them right now, but I'll do them tomorrow. So what is something that you found as far as taking action steps? What is a reasonable amount? What's something that you think that people maybe they what am I trying to say? We put too much on our plate thinking that we have to do too much when really it's a lot smaller amounts of action. So what does that actually look like for people? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the action's going to vary depending on, what their dream or their goal or their vision is. But in terms of the quantity of it, I feel like so many people think that, and I think it's because the industry, there's so many people saying you've got to take massive action, right? And so they think that they have to do all this stuff in one day or 1 week, and it's just not true. Like, you would know this example, Laurie, from your fitness background, but imagine someone that hasn't been to the gym for like 3 years, and then they decide, I'm going to go to the gym and I want to lose weight, and so they go and they try and run for like half an hour on a treadmill. Like, even if they survive that, the next day they're going to be like aching, sore, tired. They're not going to want to go. And I promise you, by day 3 or day 4, they would have turned it in and said, this is too much. And instead of the person who is in the same situation but says, I'm going to go and I'm just going to just walk for 10 minutes, and the next day I'm going to walk for 15, and then I'm going to run for 5 and walk for 20, and you just gradually build it up until eventually it's like, wow, okay, look how far I can actually go. And yeah, I just feel like so many people kind of have that backwards a little bit.
The consistency thing, I have to be honest, like that's the one thing that, thank God I started in fitness, because I learned that so early on, and it runs parallel with anything and everything in life. It's just like, if you just show up, it's amazing, because, and if you follow that energy level, right, because it's like some days I have tons of energy and I'm like, okay, I can do more today. And then other days it's like, wow, maybe I should take a nap and try to do just that one thing. And as long as I show up and just keep that up every single day, it's amazing what actually happens at the end and how you can accomplish your goal. It's like, it's kind of like that theory of, making sure that you have a date at the end or an expiration date of when you have to get something done by, because no matter how big the box is, we're going to fill it, right? So what is something that you do around goals to make sure that you reach them?
That's a great question. So I think it varies for each goal, but I always am making sure that I have a pain and pleasure motivator with any of my goals.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, people are driven by pain and pleasure, and it's a sliding scale. Like, I don't think we can put people in buckets, right? It kind of varies depending on the situation and the goal. And so to make sure I'm always hitting either end of that, I'm always thinking to myself, okay, cool, I'm writing down, if I hit this goal, then this is the reward. Here's what I get to do, or, play into, or here's where I get to go, or like there's some kind of cool, fun thing. And then if I have a circumstance where it's like, if I don't hit the goal, then here's the consequence. And it has to be something that's like painful, and that is a little bit like, I really don't want to do that, or I don't want to miss out on that, or I don't want to not have that, or whatever it is. And then something really beautiful happens unconsciously, is your brain kind of gets unconsciously motivated by it, and you just tend to be a little bit more motivated when you actually come to doing the work around it.
Oh my God, I totally do that.
It's so cool.
So I love that you just said that, because I do think pain for me is actually a massive, I've always had the ability to really look forward and say, well, what am I going to miss out on? Or what is something that I absolutely in this lifetime cannot make sure on my deathbed, looking back, that I accomplished, like that I don't want to die regretting this. So for you, what is that thing that, looking back, that you have not accomplished yet, but kind of that big goal, the end of your life, that you want to look at and make sure that you have accomplished and left the world with? What is it?
Yeah, definitely. For me, it really comes down to the number of people that I get to impact, touch, and help and inspire. And what if I was to leave this planet at the end of my life and have millions of people literally sit there and go, you know what, like Regan made me think differently. Regan made me have some better awareness around this. Regan kind of changed my life in this way. Like, if millions of people could say that about my work directly, regardless of whether we've met in person or not, then I'm going to be like super, super grateful and happy.
I love that. That's beautiful. So what is something that you are working through, or something that is scaring you right now? Do you have anything?
There's always lots of things.
Me too.
There's always lots of things. Something which has been kind of a little bit testing and scary recently, which is interesting, and it's relevant to our conversation we were having about alignment, is I was sitting down, it was probably about 6 months or so ago, and I was journaling, and I was really asking myself, what does this next big vision look like? Like, what does this next season entail? And really digging deep and just not filtering it, not writing out what I think it should look like, just really letting whatever needs to come through. And I tune into it, and all this stuff comes through around me being an artist and a musician. And now, I was a musician as a child, and I played the piano and drums and things like that, but I haven't, been in that world for ages. And this stuff keeps coming through, and it's like, no, like, you're ignoring this part of yourself. Like, you need to be in music somehow. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at all of this, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know how to do this. I don't know how this is going to happen. I'm not recognized as an artist, other than speaking, writing, and coaching, right, in the music realm at all. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to let that go, and I'm just going to commit to it. And the moment I committed to it, I had all this fear come up. Fear around, what are your audience going to think if you start doing something random that's not a part of your brand? Like, how is it going to happen? Like, are you going to write a song? You don't know how to write a song. Like, all this stuff is coming up, right? And then sure enough, I just trusted in it. And recently I connected with Lakeisha Michelle, who's actually Lisa Nichols' niece. And we connected up in Barcelona, and it just happened that night. Like, I was reading some of my writing and she was singing like on top of it, and we wrote this song like literally for like hours, sitting there towards the evening. And it's in a place now where it's literally coming out, like I don't know when this interview will be released, but it's out now basically around this time. And it's been a crazy journey of just really seeing, wow, okay, that's what it looks like when you commit to something within, even though it's like kind of off topic for what you're meant to be focusing on with your vision. But it feels amazing, but it also feels super scary, and you have no idea how it's going to happen.
Oh, I love that so much. You are like exactly in the same kind of position that I'm in right now. It's funny, but mine is coming up around spoken word. I'm like, what is this? Why? How random is this going to be if I just start doing this like random poetry? Like this stuff. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I love that because all it does is it just complements and amplifies everything that you're doing, and it also frees people, right? Like, how many people have you told that you're doing that, and all of a sudden you learn so many cool things about them that you never knew?
Exactly, 1,000%. And please go and do your spoken word, because that's exactly what mine is as well. Like, I'm not a singer. I'm definitely not a singer, and so it's me speaking and singing around it. So it works. It's possible.
Oh my God, I love it. I actually recorded a podcast on it like 2 weeks ago and almost threw up, but I released it. So we're doing it. We're doing it.
So cool.
I'll cheer you on.
Yay.
I will absolutely be your biggest cheerleader, and I'll be so inspired by you. So I have to look it up. Is it out?
It's literally being approved like this afternoon. So yeah, it's practically out.
Wait. Okay, yay. So
cool.
glad that you did that. Is there anything else like that in your life right now, that like something creatively or something that makes you feel most like you? What makes you feel most like you when you're...
What makes me feel most like me?
Like just that, that version of yourself that you're like, this is me. I feel so good when I'm doing this, more of this.
Yeah, look, I'm noticing that more and more and more with speaking, and that's been an interesting journey too, because I'm a massive introvert. I used to be terrified of talking to people. Even one person was terrifying, and so being on stage wasn't really my natural state, I guess. So it's definitely something that I've pushed myself into pretty uncomfortably, but knowing that if I did it and if I did it well, I'd be able to reach and impact more people. So that was really always my driver. But I'm definitely noticing in the last year, like every time I get on stage, it's kind of getting easier and easier to show up as me, and I'm feeling better and better about it, and there's more and more cool stuff coming through. So yeah, I'm really kind of enjoying that element and playing into that right now.
Oh, let's talk about that, because I actually, our similarities in that are so scary. Like, same thing, like one person, I could literally get social anxiety just thinking of talking to a small group, going to dinner with people and talking, like having the attention on me was like, makes you want to vomit.
Same here.
And now I love speaking. Like, it's probably the time that I feel most connected.
Right.
But a lot of work goes into that right now. I know a lot of people on the podcast either want to be speaking or they want to be getting their voice out there. Number one, why is it so important that we start to use our voice? And number two, do you have any rituals that you've done around speaking to really help you step in?
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, look, I think it's so important that everyone listening not only, uses their voice, but recognizes they have a voice. They feel like, that's the first step. And it's really just remembering that, oh, yeah, I'm put here for a reason, and what I have to say is important. I truly believe you're not put here just to hide away and like pay some bills and die. Like, it's just, there's more to life, and, there's a soul within your body, and your soul needs to speak or sing or do whatever it needs to do. So it's really just acknowledging and remembering that and owning that part of yourself. And then from there, it's, choosing to do it. I think there's a lot of people who say, yeah, I'd love to be a speaker, but then they think that just declaring that, someone will come knock on their door and say, here's a paid speaking engagement. And Laurie as well, right? It takes time, and you've got to really kind of put yourself out there and find the stages and run your own events as well, and, do all of that. And then when it comes to, I guess, rituals or things which I go through, which have really helped me, you know, I used to get so nervous before I got onto stage. And what I've found works really well is using music as a bit of an anchor. So what I'd do is I'd set this up before I went on stage. So I would be in my, you know, hotel room or wherever I was before I spoke, and I'd play a song which I was really like enjoying listening to at that moment, but I'd get into a really high vibe with it. So I'd literally be running around the room like, woo, like like celebrating, like as if I'd just come off stage, right? And so I'm getting into that energy, and then I would literally visualize my whole talk, not necessarily around what I say, just how good I felt, the audience responding, everyone feeling amazing, everyone standing up and clapping at the end, me walking off, people backstage being like, wow, that was incredible, thank you. I saw all of it, and I still see all of it every time. Now the music's playing the whole time that I'm visualizing this, so I'm getting it in my sensory, I'm getting it through every part of my body. And then what I do is right before I go on stage, if I'm at the back of the room or if I'm backstage, I literally have that song playing in my ears through my phone, through my headphones. And I'm literally like, people just know, don't talk to me like 20 minutes before I go on, because I'm getting in that zone. So I find that really, really, really helps. And it just gets you in this energetic place of having already lived it and feeling really good about it.
I love that. I do. I do so much of that as well. It's amazing. Yeah. It's just, I love talking to speakers because it helps me so much to really understand what works, and also just not being attached. I love that you said that you picture the feeling and you feel it, because when I try to picture what I'm saying, it's like I get really attached, and that's when the nerves come back. And when you can just kind of feel, right, that's when that energy, when you get filled up, and it's like that trusting. So do you have anything around trusting, knowing that you're going to be delivered what you need? Do you do any prayers or meditation, or is it kind of the same thing?
No, totally. And it's so interesting you say that, because, you know, in that education company which I started, and I was running my own events, and they were small events, you know, there were 15, 20 people in the room, but I was speaking the whole time. And I used to be so paranoid that I wasn't going to be able to say everything or get it all in. And my fear was more than anything, oh, they're not going to get the value and they won't get the result if I don't get every single little point. And so I used to literally stand up there and practically read. Like, I wasn't even speaking, I was reading to them. Like, it's crazy when I look at it. And I did this for a couple of months, and they were happy. They were like, oh, cool. And they were learning everything, but I was for sure just reading full sentences off these pages. Oh my God. And so I did this, and you know what's so funny? I remember I was at an event that we were running, and it was in Perth, Australia. I remember it so clearly. And I turned around to my assistant like 5 minutes before everyone was turning up, and I was like, where are my speaking notes? And she's like, you have them. And I was like, no, I don't have them. You've got them. She's like, I don't have them. I was like, oh, and then I realized I don't have them. So I was like, oh man, what do we do? And she's like, I don't even have them on my computer. We don't have time. Like, the clients are here, and people were walking into the room. And I just remember at that moment, I had to make a decision. Okay, I'm just going to have to trust myself, and I'm just going to choose that everything's going to come out and it's going to be perfect. And so I worked off the workbook, which they had, and I taught the content, which I already knew, right? But I trusted myself to deliver it. But I tell you what, these clients were like, whoa, like, this is life-changing, this is amazing. Like, they were just blown away. And that was a reaction I had never had when I was reading them, all of my notes. And it was from that, it was a little bit of validation there, and it was like, oh, okay, I've got this. But I thought about it afterwards, and I was like, what created that result? And I was like, like, I chose that result. I chose to trust myself. I chose it was all going to come out. I chose it was going to be perfect, and I chose it had to happen now. So I feel like if someone goes into a speaking experience with that internal reality, then that's massively going to help them.
Oh my God, you're freaking me out, first of all, because I had such a similar experience, and that's where I learned, like, okay, detach from the notes.
Right.
And it's the best thing ever. I mean, what a gift to have that experience, because sometimes I believe the thing, you know, especially if we're trying so hard to make sure it's good, it's like, having it taken away from you can be the best thing in the entire world. So sometimes those horrible things, especially as a speaker, you know, just go with the flow, because if it's happening like that, or if you're having a freak out moment or something panicked or you're missing something, it's divine and it's perfect, and just trust the entire process.
Exactly.
Because that's what it looks like, right? It's always going to be something different.
Exactly. And half the times when a speaker, like, messes up or leaves a part out or repeats something, people don't even notice. They really don't even notice.
Have you found, and I just want to share this experience with people listening, have you found that there have been stories that come up that all of a sudden you're like, I don't know why this is coming out of my mouth right now, but I'm going to share it, or wow, that's not pertinent anymore and I'm completely skipping this entire part of my talk?
1,000%. I've had it happen all the time, and it's a result of tuning in and really trusting that. And a great example is now, I don't have notes in front of me right now, like, we're technically speaking to each other, you can feel that there's an audience there that's going to listen to this. I don't think I've ever told that story of having lost my notes, right? It just came out, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Like, obviously that just needed to come out right now because someone listening needed to hear that. So yeah, it's really trusting those things rather than me going, oh my God, what's like my answer to your pre-scripted question, right? It's like, let's have this organic conversation and trust that. Yeah.
I love that. The more just podcasting I do and the more interviews and speaking, it's kind of like people will be like, do you want me to send you questions beforehand? So, and I'm like, I actually would rather not, because
exactly.
it's become so beautiful to be able to trust yourself and know that if I don't know the answer, I can say, you know what, I don't know the answer, or give me a minute. And I believe that people need to see that now, just that what is actually happening in real time, or wow, we don't know everything. Like, there's a lot of power in not knowing things, right? And just being able to say that.
Exactly. And it's much more powerful to someone to say, you know what, like, that's not actually my area of expertise, or I don't want to answer that because I'm not 100% sure on it. Like, that is actually going to build more trust and respect with your audience rather than bluffing an answer that you think they need to hear. Like, they're going to feel that energetically.
That is so beautiful because it's so freeing. Like, one of the things that used to hold me back was, I remember looking at different mentors or fitness mentors, and number one in the fitness industry a while back, it was like, never let them see you eat candy. Like, you definitely don't drink alcohol. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? Because I love candy and I love champagne.
Right.
So,
challenge.
I'm never going to be able to do that. So that, that was one thing. And then the speakers, I was like, they're so flawless. I'm definitely not like that. I can only speak from the, like, I don't want to say I can only, but I speak best from the heart. How am I ever going to be able to do that? So I think that I just love the freedom that people like you give just by showing up fully yourself and letting it be okay. So have you ever had moments where you've been speaking, and what does the process look like for you? Like, maybe you do feel that you say something you didn't want to say, or maybe it didn't go the way that you wanted to go, and that's inevitably going to happen for us, right? But what does the process look like once you leave the stage instead of carrying that with you?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question, because I used to be really bad at that process, and anyone around me or close to me would vouch for this. I used to be so critical. Like, literally, the audience could be up standing, like, cheering, screaming, and I'd walk off and I'd be like, oh man, like, these 3 things that I said wrong, or like I missed out this bit, or this needed to be more like that. Like, I was so critical on it. And it's still my default, to be honest. Like, I still naturally go into that place, and it's not from an intention of I suck, it's from an intention of, oh, I want to do better for them, for the people listening. So I really have a lot of work every time when I come off stage, and I catch that and I go, okay, Regan, like, great, like, you can critique yourself later. But what was amazing now, and I force myself to think of like 3 to 5 things that I did really well, or that I loved, or that was awesome, or that I want to repeat again. And I just really ground into that kind of gratitude energy with it. And then of course I can have a strategic look at, okay, like, what can be better for next time? And then I go back again to the good things. So it's kind of like your own feedback sandwich, where you're like, great stuff, improvements, great stuff, and you play it back to yourself. Because I know that, you can't manifest the next level of where you're going from a place of frustration or negativity or criticism. So if I want to shift and be better, then I have to be grounded in gratitude. So for me, it's a constant, like, reminder to do that, because my default is just to tear myself apart, basically.
Seriously, thank you so much for sharing that. And I can imagine it's probably the same, like, that can all be applied to releasing a program, or, putting your creations out into the world, right? Kind of like, what is something that you do around, okay, you just released this, maybe a book or a program or a podcast or whatever that looks like. What do you think is the best process for putting yourself out there in the beginning?
I honestly think the best process for putting yourself out there is just to be you. And I know it's maybe doesn't sound like the most strategic answer, but if I was to kind of do it all again, that's the one thing I'd do differently. I remember when I started online, it's like I had to have two personalities because seriously, it got crazy. Because I was like, okay, cool. So I want to do these YouTube videos and I want to do this blog with these videos and this stuff. And so I was like, wow, I better show up professionally. Otherwise no one's going to take me seriously. So you guys can go back and find these photos and stuff. Even when I spoke, I used to wear like a jacket. Like I looked like I'd rolled straight out of corporate and I've never been in corporate. And so it's like, what is this? And so I was all like polished on my videos. I had perfect makeup. My hair had to be a certain way. Like I had this thing. And then I found myself going, oh, okay, great, that's done. Now I can collapse and just be me. And I kept that pattern going for ages. And then I thought about it because it started to feel really heavy and really frustrating and like, oh, I can't be bothered bringing like professional business Regan to the table right now. She doesn't want to come and play. And so it was like, okay, what am I doing and how do I fuse this? And then I was like, oh my God, I don't even have to fuse it. I just need to show up being me. And that's when I decided that, okay, of course I can make, obviously some extra effort out of respect for someone's stage or something and show up and wear something nice, but if it's just me and it's a live stream, then guess what? I might just like lie on my bed and live stream, or I might be in a bikini and live stream. And guess what? Because you're getting me in an authentic version of me all the time. And I really noticed in my business when I started showing up like that, that's when people fell in love. That's when people were like, oh my God, I've been looking for you. They were like, how do I work with you? Like all of this stuff started opening so much. And I was like, what's different? My products and services aren't different. Well, I was different because I was actually just choosing to be me.
Oh my God, yes. Right down to the jackets. I went through my closet and I was like, well, I've never been in corporate either. And I was like, what are these jackets? Like what? Because I love flowy, like, boho,
not
like
jackets,
crystals, and like curling my hair. Like I love all of it, and I finally the last 2 years embraced it, and I can't even tell you guys. Like I love that you just said that. I was over here just like cheering, because I can feel you. You know what I mean? I don't even really know you yet, but I can feel you. I can catch your energy. I can understand you. I can see you. I can hear you. And when we're, if that is your thing, if you do love to dress in a certain way, or you do love the corporate look, that's awesome because you're still going to come through in a major way if that's what makes you feel most like you.
Exactly.
But it's kind of like we're in such a blessed time right now. How fun is it to be able to be fully you, like, and do what you love to do and share it the second that it's like hot and now and in your brain and you want to connect with people. Like we are so blessed to do that. So I'm so excited that you stepped into that. That's awesome.
So cool. Such a gift, right?
It is amazing. So, you have incredible businesses, and I'm sure that you have amazing relationships in your life, especially now. And I know that took a lot of work and a lot of boundary setting. So what does it look like for you when you first really started stepping into setting boundaries for yourself to make space for all that you had to create and come through, and also set boundaries around relationships?
Wow, such an amazing question. It was tough. It was really tough, and I think it's still a little bit tough, to be honest. I think it's still something I'm working at and am refining. But yeah, I kind of figured out a while ago that it's great to have dreams and visions, but ultimately everyone has a dream and a vision, and they don't all necessarily manifest it. But I think people do manifest what they tolerate in their life. And so I kind of kept the, what's the vision, what's the dream, all that stuff we talked about. I kept doing that, but at the same time I was like, okay, what's my minimum standard? Like, what is my level of tolerance? And if I am to shift that and raise that, what is that going to look like? And so I kind of did that across the board, in my health, in relationships, in business, money, all of it. Even when I'm setting financial goals, I'm like, this is my minimum standard, non-negotiable for the month. Like I just will not tolerate anything less than that. Rather than just going, here's the goal, here's the big dream, money thing, which a lot of people do. And so, yeah, I think it's taken a lot of work. I definitely wasn't wired to naturally think like that. It's taken practice and it's taken refinement, and I still have to kind of remind myself to do that. But I think that's one of the biggest things across the board is like raising the level of what I'm actually going to tolerate.
Oh, that's so good. People manifest what they tolerate. Like I just wrote that down. That's amazing. So how about taking care of yourself? Because as much as you get to do, I know sometimes people are like, oh, you have this great business, you get to travel, you get to work from home. But if you're not creating space to truly recharge, it's like, oh man, you're not going to be gifted with that incredible feeling of feeling like you, feeling inspired, feeling connected. So how do you make sure that you schedule that time to recharge?
Yes. Once again, I used to be not good at this. I was very much brought up, especially by my dad, being like, work hard, and then work some more hard, right? And so I had that mentality, and I used to pride myself on it. I used to be like, look how hard I'm working, and I'm doing it all myself, and I'm exhausted, and please give me a gold star. Like, I was really looking for some sort of validation through it. And then I realized I was never going to get that, and I was going to deteriorate if I wasn't going to look after myself. So I'm pretty intentional on it now. I'm very good at just clearing the calendar unapologetically and going, that day's just booked, and really just kind of being non-negotiable with it as well. And I used to deal a lot with guilt, so I used to feel really guilty doing that. I used to feel like, oh, I can't shift that training, or I can't, block out that call because a client might want to talk to me today, not tomorrow, and then I'm letting them down. And then I just had to really tune into the fact that, hey, like, if I can't bring the best version of me to the table to serve these people, then I'm letting them down, and I'm doing them a huge disservice if they've invested with me for a result. And so when I kind of rewired that, I was like, oh, okay, it's okay to love on myself. It's okay to clear the day. It's okay to say, you know what, I can't do that. I'm going to get a massage and I'm turning my phone off. Like, that's okay. So I feel like I'm definitely in a good balance and flow with it now. And I'm very, I find it very easy to, clear the calendar of that stuff. But it was work in the beginning for sure.
I love that. I'm kind of getting a reality check smackdown. Like, I thought I was really good with it. Yet this year, I just have had so many things that I've been excited about. So I confuse, like, no, I'm good. I'm excited. No, I'll be like, I'm so tired. And then I wake up and I know how to kind of do those things that put a Band-Aid on it. Like, I can meditate and work out, and all of a sudden I feel way better than I felt. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And then all of a sudden it's just like, but you're losing your excitement. Have you had times in your life like that? Like, you're fine, but all of a sudden you're noticing maybe you're not recharging enough? Because for me, my indicator is like, I just can't seem to get super excited about stuff. So is there anything that is an indicator for you where you're like, oh, there's that feeling, I need a little more space and time?
Yeah, definitely. I get it a lot if I don't listen, and if I, don't create those boundaries and clear that space. And one thing for me, at my I guess little clue, or my little clue for how that stuff is showing up is that I tend to go into doubt with things really easily. So I'll be like, oh, you know what? Maybe this isn't my vision. Maybe this was the wrong thing in business. I start doubting everything, and it's crazy. And I just know it's this character which comes up, and for me, it's a signal of like, okay, like, you're tired and exhausted, you're heading to burnout, what are you doing about it? And I just allow myself to catch it and be like, okay, cool, let's just love on myself and give myself some space and time and whatever I need in that moment, and then let's reassess if we're really going to doubt the whole world, Regan. Like, let's reassess that. And so for me, it's like just noticing that behavior and those mindsets which come up, and instead of judging them, just loving on them and using them as a little tag for something that needs to be adjusted.
So good. Do you have a ritual around building your faith practice, so where you just can get to that place where you are 100% faithful and clear even on the scary stuff?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. Like, I used to be really big on, spending half an hour in the morning, going through an exact process and connecting that way. And I still do that. I still tune in every day. That definitely is a non-negotiable for me. But over and above and beyond that, the up level to that was asking myself, okay, how do I stay totally connected and totally in faith through my whole day? Because for me, it's like, okay, that hour's great, but what about the other 23 hours? Like, they kind of matter too, right? It's like someone going to the gym for like an hour and then just like eating terrible things for the rest of the day. It's like, of course that's not going to serve them. And so for me, it's been tuning in and like reassessing myself on that. So one thing which I did and still often do, which may help everyone listening, is I set a little alarm on my phone, and I set it for like every hour if possible. Now, obviously, if you're speaking or coaching or whatever, you can turn it off, or sleeping. Obviously, don't do it when you're asleep, just for when you're awake. And during this hour, every time the alarm pings and it goes off, you just need to stop and catch yourself and just give yourself just 2 minutes and no more than that, and just go, okay, cool, where am I at right now? Where's my energy? And just take your own pulse. Where am I connected? Am I feeling good? Where am I at right now? And then anything which doesn't feel amazing or that doesn't feel in flow for you, okay, how do you shift and readjust that? And I've found that, especially with my clients, when they do this over weeks and then months, they get to the point where the alarm's going off and they're like, oh yeah, I'm in that vibe. Oh yeah, I'm already there. Oh yeah, that's just who I am. Because it's like they've reconditioned themselves through that. So that's something which has really helped me.
That's awesome. So with the new year here and everybody, there's a lot of different noise of trying to get healthy, trying to set goals, making this year finally be the year that you don't disappoint yourself or that you finally reach those goals. What are some things that you would tell people maybe around getting clear on their goals and, what is a realistic way to go? I actually don't really love that word realistic.
We're not very realistic. So that's why.
But how do we, what are some great goal setting tips that you would give people to think bigger as well and think abundantly for this year?
Totally. So, two things. One thing that I love doing around goal setting, and it's interesting, obviously you're right, this always happens around January the 1st, right? And everyone's setting their New Year's resolutions and what's my year going to be like? I would encourage that you do that. Absolutely tune in and write it all out and get clear and go through whatever process serves you on that. But do it every month. And here's what people miss is that they get to March and they're like, New Year's what? They can't even remember what they wrote down. And so if you actually go, okay, where am I going to be 12 months out from now on January the 1st? Then where are you going to be 12 months out from now on February the 1st? So then you're working February to February and then March to March. And it's like a rolling 12 months, obviously. It's like you never actually hit the 12-month goal, but in 12 months' time, you're then working 12 months out from there. So I just find it really keeps myself and other people really tuned in and focused to what is actually going on, rather than trying to set a goal and then look at it 12 months later and be like, how did I do? I feel like there's a lot more clarity and focus on that. And then for people, wanting to set up their year and going, okay, cool, 2018 is my year. It's the year to manifest all the big things, which I'm looking to call in. I would recommend you go through a process where you sit down and you just ask yourself, if I was to truly create my big vision in 2018 in total alignment, what would that look like for me? And you can meditate, you can journal, you can do whatever you want, but get into detail with it, remembering, like we said, to touch on all the different pieces. And then what's interesting is once you've done that, you want to sit on that, connect with that, feel good with that. And here's what I do, which I think a lot of people haven't yet tapped into, which is kind of cool, is that I love to help people expand their mindset and look at how do we now play bigger than that and go to the next level. So the next task to sit down and again journal on, meditate, do whatever you want with, is to sit down and say, okay, cool, if that big picture reality was already my reality right now, what would my vision be? And it's like if you were already living into it, if it was the end of 2018 and you were like, cool, I've manifested all of it, this feels so good, what would your goal be? Because it wouldn't be the same goal. If it's to manifest $100,000, you're not going for 100 again, you're going for 120 or 150 or whatever that looks like. And so what happens is when you get into this place, your mind starts going, whoa, I actually have the capacity to think into, speak into, and hold so much more than what I think is possible. And something interesting happens is that we start painting a reality on the other side of the vision. And if we don't do this, our system marks it as fear, it marks it as unknown, it marks it as potentially really dangerous for you, which is why so many people get so close to their goals and don't actually achieve them. And so it breaks down all these barriers at the same time. And then when you look back on your big vision you did in step number 1, it's like, oh, that's just a stepping stone to get me to the next place. And it all just starts to feel a little bit easier. So yeah, I love kind of breaking down that system.
Oh, I love that. And something that you pointed out that's so huge is the power of just having someone who can help you think a little bit bigger. Because it's that's one of my biggest things is why I love mentors, masterminding, coaching, and just making sure I'm surrounded by incredible people is because I'm going to put a cap on myself. I'm going to hit my fear mark and I'm probably going to go a couple notches down from there. Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to be no way, that's really scary. My potential is like 2 feet down from my fear mark, where I can still like feel fear, but I'm kind of comfortable. And then you have those people from the outside who come in and say, what are you doing? Like, I see you doing so much more. This is something that you say that you want. So what's stopping you? And then to constantly hear that, right? So what do you do in your life to make sure that you have those people who are maybe assessing you, or do you ask for it, or do you hire coaches, or how does that work for you?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I need so many people keeping me accountable. It's not